Okay, when we think of the 1980s, people of a certain vintage, it may be Margaret Thatcher, maybe the miners' strike, maybe Charlie and Di, or even New Romantics, but racing people will think of this man, Terry Ramsden.
It's
Terry.
the hair, isn't it? It's always been about the barnet, right? Never been any different since I was 19, so why should I change now?
Well, you ruffled a few feathers in your early days, coming from a fairly humble background, we can describe it. Can you tell us a bit about how you got to where you got?
Sorry, ruffled feathers? I don't know what you're talking about. Why would I ruffle feathers? I'm just a very straightforward, hard-working guy with an IQ of 197 who's affectionately known to a lot of people, Sir Michael Marshall being one of them, and now as E.T., with a company called E.T. Phone Home Limited, funnily enough, which is kind of a dig from the 80s, don't you think? And poignant, who come from a humble background in Enfield. Mum and Dad were nice, normal, ordinary people. Mum worked in a factory. Dad was a GPO engineer. And I left school early and went to the city and made my fortune from there.
You made your fortune in the city, but you've got a penchant for gambling, which is what a lot of people would have known of you, as well as a success in the stock
Penchant
market.
for gambling. Oh, well. When I first started in the city in '68, I was a very young man and I started in insurance, which was fine and wonderful, but too boring for me. And I moved to the stock exchange, where I met a guy from Southend called Peter Little, who was a gambler, a habitual gambler. And he used to take me, my department, take me down to the betting shop. And so we began to run races. I've always been a maths guy, so most people would tell you I'm not bad at maths. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm pretty near to a 10. Some people would say they're 10 plus that, but whatever. The issue would always be a maths equation. And so as I became 16 and 17 and 18, I began to bet and to study and to accumulate knowledge in this thing called the brain. And I worked through the normal back office, studying old school procedures of dematerialization from an old stock certificate into an electronic certificate that kind of stood me in good stead. I mean, you know, for example, this, some people would tell you, is a £20 note. It's actually not a £20 note. It's £21 shares of a company called the Bank of England. And on the back, people would tell you that's a serial number. It's actually not. It's an ISIN number, an International Security Identification Number. So when you take that to the bank, it's a piece of paper. When you give it to the bank dematerialise it, meaning convert it to electronics. It doesn't become a banknote anymore. It becomes £21 units on Terry Ramsden's personal account, and then you can send it anywhere in the world you want by Swift. So the whole of the global network works from this principle. And when I first started, I spent 4 or 5 years, 4 years, dedicating myself to studying all of this process, whether that be Australian gold mining companies that were 100 years old, or Bermuda Telephone and Telegraph companies, and translating them into electronics. That led me from the back office to become a trader. So here we are in 1978, and Terry decides that Fear Naught can't get beat in the Royal Hunt Cup. So Terry's a young man, made some money, and decides to bet to the maximum on Fear Naught, who duly wins the Royal Hunt Cup, who he cheers home in the chairman's private suite in the partners area of the firm. Yay! There you go. The gambling bug has bitten well and truly. I made £75,000 on the straight bet, together with some cup doubles and trebles, and Ascot was always quite a good place, as you saw from history, for me to make. I then decided to evolve myself out of the firm, and I went out on my own the following year and left the firm and started up Terry Ramsden Inc., if you want. The firm duly folded a year after, because obviously I'd been a major contributor to its revenue. It's called Hedderwick Sterling Grumber. And I'd built the Japanese business. I built a penchant for the ability to dematerialise things. and things that actually were not tangible. A thing called a warrant. We all know what a warrant is. No, Terry, we don't know what a warrant is. Well, if you and I rob a bank and we get caught, we get arrested. If you and I rob a bank and we don't get caught, but the police know we robbed the bank, they go and get a thing called a warrant, which is the right to an arrest. So it's not actually a £20 note, it's a right to a £20 note. So I figured out, using my years of expertise, how to make an electronic instrument out of warrants, and then I attacked the Japanese market. All the time I'm building my capital, all the time I'm now out of mainstream, I'm no longer with a broker, I'm on my own. So I decided, you know what, you've always liked horses, you've always liked greyhounds, why don't you just dip your toe in the market and buy some? So in 1980, I think, I bought my first horse, which was a horse called Third Generation, if I remember, with Hugh Collingridge, if I remember, from Newmarket. Horses for courses, you know. What do you want to buy? A Derby winner, the first horse you ever buy. It doesn't happen to many people. That's Alice in Wonderland, or it's The Wizard of Oz. I actually coloured The Wizard of Oz from black and white into colour, but that's another story. So my intro into racing began. Between 1980 and 1984, the Japanese market rocketed, and so my particular area of expertise, warrants, meaning the ability to buy a £20 note on leverage, meaning you're only really paying £2 on that £20 note. So that £20 note becomes £40. That's very good if you pay £20 for it. If you pay £2 for it, your rate of return looks quite interesting. It becomes a bet, doesn't it? It becomes a gamble. And hence my rise through the ranks in the warrant market was always based on the maths equation of you buy something for less than what it's worth, but you benefit to the full. So, you know, if you want to have a £10,000 bet on a even money shot, it's a £10,000 bet on an even money shot. If that £10,000 bet on an even money shot pays you 20 to 1, you start to increment capital. Same principle, it's no different. So I would say that my gambling mentality, my ability to understand the maths of gambling, of relativity, of the value and the non-value in a bet, in the game, in a security, in an instrument, is a fundamental platform on which my life has been built. Always. From then, right up until now. Today, not 2021. But again, we won't talk about that story at the moment. We'll get around to that in due course. So I made some money, and then I decided that, having capitalized out of the English and Japanese markets, I wanted to set up a proper serious company. So I bought a very small Scottish company called Glen International that had a turnover of £18,000 a year in 1984, until I got hold of it. The following year, its turnover was £3.5 billion, which isn't bad growth for anybody. During that course of time, I took some time off, and I was a member of the AIBD, which is the Association of International Bond Dealers at the time. So once a year, the international bond dealers would all sit down and get together and have a soiree upside down in the bushes, in the Bouchers, as in this particular year, the Bouchers, as it was in the south of France. So I'm sitting in the south of France, drinking with the lads, and one or two lasses, and Mick Ryan rings me up. I'd had a few horses, and I'd expanded out a little bit from Hugh Collingridge and David Dale, you know, non-mainstream, all niche players in the game. Mick Ryan rings me up. So And I'm Mick, where you are? I have a horse you got to buy. Mick, I'm in the south of France, drunk with the lads. It's the AIBD week. Terry, you got to buy this horse. This horse will win the Irish Guineas on Saturday. This is a Monday. And I'm like, what? Mick, leave me alone. This horse ran second in the Princess Elizabeth at Epsom. She led at the furlong pole, was too far for her, she didn't get home. She'll win the Irish Guineas on Saturday. I said, Mick, I'm not even back till Thursday. So what do you want me to do? Buy this horse sight unseen. I guarantee you it will win the Irish Guineas on Saturday. How much is the horse? £500,000. So, Mick, you want me to bet £500,000 on a horse called Katie's that's only won one race, was beaten in a group race at Epsom. You're telling me you guarantee it wins the Irish Guineas on Saturday. So I can take the jet, fly to Ireland, put what I want on it, and it'll win. Yep. So, okay, let's do it. Then we had the problem of the mechanics of actually getting the horse paid for, getting the colours registered and all this. So the guys I bought it off were some very nice Jewish guys from north of London. Yeah, Mick, it's very good, you know, lovely, but we know Terry's good for the money, but how are we going to get our money? So they were worried. It's now Tuesday afternoon, and how are we, and I'm stuck halfway around the world upside down in the Bouchers. How are we going to get our money? So I had my guys draw a check, and not like a check, right? And then the coordination was, what we're going to do with it? Well, the check won't clear before the race is run. So you've got these lovely guys from North London who are clients of Mick's, running around with a check, rushing off to the bank in New Bond Street, in that Western New Bond Street, bless them, on a Wednesday afternoon, trying to cash the check and get it stamped to make sure that the horse was paid for before it ran on Saturday. We managed it. It was fixed. It was sorted. So I had one of the lads go and get me some cash. And then in those days, cash wasn't a problem. You could get money and go and get some money out of the bank. It's not like the world we live in there. And I flew straight to Ireland. So I get to Ireland, where a guy called Michael Geraghty from Geraghty Racing, their son still actually makes a book at Doncaster. He met me in Ireland, so we decided what we're going to have on the horse. So I look at the board and the horse is 20-1. Mick, you said this horse was a certainty to win. So he said, it's fine, it will win. So, you know, Irish Guineas is a hard race to win. So I had 50,000 quid on it at 20-1. And I stood the bet, they mixed it between the bookmakers, Michael Geraghty organised it all. So there I am, standing there with Mick Ryan, and we're up in the stands, and Mick's standing next to me, he's going, Robinson came round the outside, we're going awful well, and I'm like, what, we're going awful well. And Katie's, of course, come the outside. She went a bit too early. It was Philip Robinson, who rode it, had ridden Pebbles to win the English Guineas, and he ridden Katie's to win. She duly won, and that was that. Job done, made £1 million. Thank you very much. The rest of the weekend was quite hazy. We had a very, very good friend of ours called Patrick Flavin, a slightly eccentric Canadian, American, who owned the Chicago racetrack at one point. He was with us, and him and Mick, and I don't know what happened to the rest of the weekend. I woke up on Tuesday, I think. So anyway, we then decide, job done, well done, thank you very much, covered the cost of the horse. What are we going to do now? Now the next port of call is to run at Royal Ascot. So by this time, then international's already starting to grow, capital's starting to flow, business is coming to me. Obviously, the famous Terry bought this horse without seeing it. It's gone and won the Irish Guineas, come back with £1 million. Oh my God, what we're going to do now? So we're going to run at Royal Ascot. So the problem with running at Royal Ascot is you have Pebbles, who was then I think unbeaten, or had won a very good race at Newmarket and then won the Guineas at Newmarket, ridden by Philip Robinson. obviously can't ride two horses. So then Philip Robinson was a young boy then, in his 20s, very young, early 20s, has to decide whether to ride Pebbles. It's a very, very good filly. She won the Breeders' Cup. Or Katie's. Now, the contrast, if you ever watched the race, Pebbles was tiny, like a greyhound. Katie's was a huge mare. So you couldn't have two more contrasting styles than Pebbles, who was gritty and would fight, and Katie's, who was majestic and would just come there and look at where is everybody. You couldn't have a greater contrast. But obviously the choice had to be Philip Robinson. So obviously Philip Robinson was close to Clyde Britton, who's a lovely guy, highest respect for him. He has to make the choice. So Philip, young guy, all kinds of pressure on him, won the Irish Guineas, won the English Guineas, has to make a decision like that going into Royal Ascot, knowing full well that Mick has had it, that this horse won't get beat. And long story short, Philip decides to ride Katie's. So Lester Piggott picks up the ride on Pebbles. Now at that time, Lester Piggott was a highly respected champion jockey, older guy. He had the young buck, who's obviously, according to Lester, made a mistake. So Lester was quite close to Cyril Steen at the time. Cyril Steen was a very autocratic chairman of Ladbrokes and the guy who built the business. And him and I had clashed on a number of occasions, let me put it to you that way. So Piggott had apparently told Cyril Steen, Robinson's wrong. He's done wrong. He's an idiot. I know what he's doing. I want him. No one. Down the Met. They'll never meet me. They'll never meet Pebbles. That's my imitation of Lester Piggott. Sorry, Lester. But listen, I shouldn't take offence. So now we have a situation where the press are building. You've got the English champion against the Irish champion. The English champion is owned by Sheikh Mohammed, ridden by Lester Piggott. Robinson's jocked himself off the English Guineas winner to ride the Irish Guineas winner. So Ascot's now fast approaching. I'm far away in Japan, far away in Japan. So I come back, I arrive back 5 days before Royal Ascot. So I go to my house in Newmarket, which I bought from Philip Robinson's family. Philip Robinson unfortunately lost his dad in a tragic situation, literally at the house in 1984. So I bought the house from the family and moved in. I subsequently sold the house to Barney Curley, who subsequently sold the house to Frankie Dettori. But that's, again, another story. So now, here we are, match of matches. Has Robinson made the right choice, or has he not? No, can't win. So Lester's told Silverstein, whatever he wants, take him out, can't win. So I come back, I ride back in the chair, go to the house, I sleep, 4:20 in the morning. What's that? It's Mick. What? It's Mick Ryan. Come on, we're going to a secret gallop. We're doing what? We're going to a secret gallop. Oh, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. What? It's just light. So Mick was very secret in those days. Off we went, get in the car, put something on. Off we go to a secret gallop in Newmarket. So at the secret gallop, there's him and me and George Marston and Philip Robinson on Katie's and 3 other horses. 2 group-winning older 5-furlong sprinters, colts, and a group-winning 7-furlong horse, who was an older horse, who was a colt as well. So Mick had said, where we are, we're standing watching, and I'm like, whoa, I can barely keep my eyes open. So gallops began. They ran hard 7 furlongs up the hill. The 2 sprinters went off absolutely like rocket. Katie's sat in behind. He told Robinson, sit in behind and wait with her. So as they come up the gallops, you see the 2 group sprinters just start to fade. The older horses come past them on the outside. And I'm looking at this, and Katie's just absolutely, he's sitting there like this. So as they've come a furlong, he's pulled her out and boom, he's let her go, and she's pinged clear. So Mick's standing there, he's tapping his foot like he does. Oh, whatever beats this is going to need wings. I went, that's a good bit of work. Whatever beats this is going to need wings. What do you mean? He said she had 2 stone in the saddle. You're just telling me that a 3-year-old filly has given a group-winning older colt 2 stone and beat it like that in a gallop? Yep. And what you like on this, there's no way she gets beat. So in we go to Royal Ascot. Coronation Stakes. Pebbles, short price favourite. Katie's 11-2. I'm like, are you joking? So I go in a helicopter to the course. I had 270 grand in cash that I took to the course to bet on Katie's on the rails, which normally you'd smash the market. But Leicester had told him, can't win, he's made a mistake. So Cyril had told the lads at Ladbrokes, whatever he wants on it, stand the bet. I had 270 grand on Katie's in cash. I had bets on credit and 100 grand reversed forecast with Pebbles. And they stood the bet and the price never moved. Because Leicester had told, can't win. Well, as you see, if you've ever watched a replay of the race, luckily they were focused on the race and they weren't focused on some long-haired, mustachioed young man with a top hat and tails on standing up there with Sheikh Mohammed and the lads as they came round the bend into the straight. Pebbles kicked hard. Robinson's come right around the field and come alongside Piggott like this. These two have drawn away. They've drawn Group 1 race, drawn 10 lengths clear of the third. So they've come inside the final furlong. Piggott's thrown everything at Pebbles. Robinson's just sat looking at him like that. I've just totally lost it. Hat's gone. Well, I don't know, a long final furlong, but not really, because he gave her 2 gentle smacks and she won easy, and they were a mile clear. Race 1. There's a very famous on YouTube, if you look at one of the clips of Mervyn Peckham, who's a lovely guy who was my stud manager then, whose son, unfortunately, Kevin Peckham, recently got killed in a tragic accident at Ryan Moore Stud. It's him standing there, very pipe smoking, robust, jolly good chaps. One of that, and some long-haired little guy running into the winner's enclosure with long hair, as long as it is now. Listen, I've still got me barnet, don't begrudge me that. With his top hat and tails on, there we are, standing in the winner's enclosure of Royal Ascot. Well, that was wonderful. Unfortunately, what happened next was kind of a longer story of a party.